Hello and welcome to Retro Reviews, my channel where I review my favorite retro video games of all time as well as some modern releases I have recently finished. About a year ago, I did a review of The Grinch on the Dreamcast and the PlayStation 1, giving it ultimately a silver ranking for saying that I really enjoyed the game. There's a lot I love about the game, but it's no masterpiece. It's not anything incredibly fantastic. It's just a lot of fun, despite its problems. So I wanted to do a kind of a follow-up this year. I do play this game every single year during the Christmas season because, one, The Grinch is one of my favorite books of all time. The Jim Carrey movie is one of my favorite movies of all time. I just love the property as it is. And the old game, I remember getting it on my Dreamcast when I was very little. I think my mom got it for me for Christmas one year, much to my brother's chagrin, because it wasn't anything crazy or really good, but I really loved it. And I love playing it year after year. And there are very few games I actually play year after year, or even every few years, but The Grinch is something I always come back to. So I want to give my thoughts on it and maybe a reevaluation of why I love this game so much. So if you're not familiar with this game, like I said before, it came out on the Dreamcast and the PlayStation 1. I had it on the Dreamcast. I really loved every minute of it. It's a very unique take on the Jim Carrey movie. It's supposed to be like a tie-in game. There are definitely lines that come straight from the movie itself. Obviously has plenty of lines from the book and the tie-in movie from way back in the day in the 60s. So it has a lot of the DNA of both the original book and the movie, but it also has a lot of its own identity as well. This is a game developed by Konami, and they did actually a really good job, especially as far as tie-in games go. Now, it starts off with the Grinch in his cave, and he is talking about how he's planning to mess with all the Who's during Christmas time. He's going to use his various gadgets, his rotten egg launcher, his rocket spring, his octopus climbing device, his Grinch copter, his marine mobile, his slime shooter. He's going to use all these inventions that he has plans for to mess with the Who's. And so he goes on this big pile of boxes to try and get some of his blueprints down so he can start making these things, and he knocks them over. The blueprints fly away off into the night, and he has to go out and retrieve them so that he can play his pranks on the Who's. It's a very goofy premise. It's a little bit different than anything that you've seen before with the other properties here. So they do their own little spin to kind of give you a reason for the Grinch to be going to lots of different various places that you don't see in the other Who universe or the Dr. Seuss universe as it is. So you can control the Grinch the entire time. You have an optional control of Max. If you press the right on the directional pad, you can call Max over and he can go into small spaces or sometimes holes in doors or holes in grates and stuff that he can only fit into to retrieve keys or to activate switches, destroy presents and stuff like that. He can do a lot of versatile things for you, which is really nice. Having the control over Max, one of the pivotal characters in the property, is really cool. I like that they added this functionality. When you're controlling the Grinch, he is fairly mobile. He runs around. It's really goofy, just hobbles from side to side. I don't know if I'm gonna get any footage for this one or not. I didn't record any myself replaying it this time around. Just wanted to mostly talk about this game. I might get some capture footage from somebody else, and I'll give them credit and everything if I do so. But it's very, very funny. The way he runs around and the way that he jumps and everything. So your main objectives in this game are to get your blueprints back so that you can unlock different things, so you can go back to different to areas that you've previously gone to and mop up the extra stuff. Very Metroidvania-esque. Excuse me, I just had a hair in my mouth there. Very Metroidvania-esque here. So you go to the first area, which is downtown Whoville. Very classic. It feels very much like the movie. You see a bunch of kids dancing to music. You see presents scattered throughout Whoville. You see pictures of the mayor up on the wall. And you have to go around. You have to smash all the presents. This is something that you see in every single locale, which there are 4 main locales in this game. You're going to smash all the presents in the area. You have certain objectives that you need to do in each area as well. So in downtown Whoville, it's painting all of the mayor's portraits, making them look really goofy. There are 10 of them in each area. You have to shoot rotten eggs into open windows. There are 10 of those as well. You have to change the time on the countdown Who clock. You have to, oh man, I'm trying to remember all the ones. You have to break a bunch of snowmen. You have to, is that it? Something like that. I'm trying to remember every single objective, but that's a good example of all the objectives here. Once you get there, you can only do a few things. You have to find the paint bucket first and foremost in order to paint all of the mayor's portraits. You have to like use a disguise, the disguise that Jim Carrey uses in the movie where he's got like the gross robe thing and the mask on. If you don a disguise by going into a phone booth, then you can sneak into the mailroom. That's one of the other objectives, is making the mail sorted all wrong, which is very classic. Again, a tie-in to the movie there. Once you complete a specific objective from this game, or a certain amount of objectives, then you unlock the next area of the game. In this case, it's going to be Who Forest, a brand new locale. The rest of them are going to be brand new locales, very new to this game specifically. So you go to Who Forest, and you have other objectives like breathing one of the Grinch's main attacks, which is bad breath. You press X, and he spits bad breath, which can like stun people, or it can make them run away and drop a present behind them. You can go to Who Forest, get these trees, you breathe on them, they die. They'll be guarded by a guy with like a snowball launcher. If you shoot him with a rotten egg, it'll stun him for a second, then you can go up and breathe on the tree. There are other objectives like finding glue and putting it in this cannon at the top of this hill. You have to get a key card to go up to the top of a ski hill and then slime the mayor's skis. Typically, the Grinch is messing with the mayor. Again, very much a call into the movie where he hates the mayor because of their past and everything. It's very, very silly. It's very weird. And once you unlock the right equipment, then you're able to bypass certain areas and get to new things in order to complete all the objectives. Typically, to break all the presents, you're going to need the final equipment, which is going to be the Grinch copter, something that lets you just fly around freely. There's sometimes presents just scattered up in the sky or hanging from things that you can't reach otherwise to break them. So you have to use all of the equipment in order to beat everything in these areas. The areas are very unique too. There's lots to do in them. This isn't the prettiest game by any stretch of the imagination, but things like branches and ledges are fairly defined in every single area, so you know exactly what you can grab onto and what you can do to get around. So the Grinch can jump onto presents to break them, but some of them are a little bit thicker, so he has to do like a butt slam to break them. He can do acrobatics on these branches. If you jump on them and press X, he'll start swinging. You can jump horizontally very far. If you time it right, you can jump higher, up onto higher branches or up to higher ledges. You can utilize your various weapons. I talked about all the things before, but I'll go into the depth more of them here. You get the rotten egg launcher first, which allows you to shoot rotten eggs at people, and you can refill your ammunition by finding rotten eggplants throughout each locale. You get the rocket spring, which allows you to jump up really, really high after a certain amount of charge. You have a slime shooter that slimes people and like traps them for a certain amount of time. You have other things like the octopus climbing device, very Doc Ock-esque, where you don this thing on your little backpack that the Grinch has, where all the devices sprout from. So when they switch to another device, it like changes mode. So if you have the rocket spring, it's got a little nozzle at the bottom that it comes back in, and then you get your launcher out for the rotten egg launcher. You get the climbing device. You can climb up certain walls and landscapes to be able to get to a certain place, which can be really nice for certain areas. You can't access certain areas of each locale until you have something like the octopus climbing device or the Grinch copter later on, but typically you get them in order. So you get like the rotten egg launcher, you've got the rocket spring, you get binoculars for the egg launcher so you can zoom in and see further. There's like one puzzle that requires the binoculars that you need it for later on in the game. The slime shooter, like I said before, slimes things and gives you a chance to get past like a guard dog or get past an enemy that you typically can't get by. You can also sneak around in this game. It's something I failed to mention. If you're holding down Y, you can sneak around and get past guards that are sleeping or people that are walking in a different direction. You can sneak up behind them and get the jump on them. It's very, very silly. But I really love what this game does to make itself really unique as well. Getting these devices feels very much up the Grinch's alley, something that I would expect him to do with all that free time up there. He's got all these things coming up to Mount Crumpet. It just really makes sense for me. So then after you complete those correct objectives in Who Forest, you go on to the dump, which is not like the dump at Mount Crumpet that you see in the movie. This is like an industrial site, a dump, like a hazardous waste kind of dump. You do have various objectives there, like leading rats into a sewer tunnel that goes straight to the mayor's home, connecting a bunch of gas lines to gas out the Who's in the area, like shaving the guard at the dump's like mustache and making him freak out. Lots of silly stuff again. And you access the power plant at one one point with the octopus climbing device to like shut down the power plant itself so that you can access new places in the dump, which will ultimately lead you on to go to the Who Forest, the final locale in this game, where your ultimate objective is to do very much like in the movie where he hooks the hook onto the mayor's bed and then it's attached to the police officer's car and he drives him around town. Do the same thing but do a speedboat and get him to go off this like upper, like it's up in a tree, like this tree house getaway area, and he's gonna get dragged off into the water by his bed. Very, very silly. You have other objectives like shooting like porcupine needles onto the scouts pants that are like hanging up on the line because there's a bunch of scouts here. You have like another area where you have to disguise yourself as a scout leader by stealing it off of this little like, middle mini boss in the first area of the Who Lake. And you go in there and you pretend to be a scoutmaster type person, drill holes in all the canoes. It's just very, very silly. And once you finish everything in Who Lake, you'll find all the appropriate blueprints for every single device, and then you'll have access to everything. And you can go back and mop up all of the older areas. But you'll also be going back to the old areas to find certain parts for your sleigh to finally get to the final boss here, which is going to ultimately be a fight against Santa, which is pretty funny. Once you get all this stuff, you go back to each area if you want to mop up the extra stuff to get 100%. Like I do every single year. You break all the rest of your presents, do your final objectives that you need to, and you'll find like in downtown Whoville this little van that is driving around in the center square that opens up occasionally. You shoot rotten eggs into it, it finally breaks, you get a sleigh part. You go into Who Forest and you have to have Max race this guy who says that he's going to be faster than him. You have to race to a certain spot. Boom, you get another sleigh part. You go into the dump, and I'm trying to remember what happens here specifically. I don't really remember what happens here. You have to do something, you get a new sleigh part, and so on and so forth. And once you have all the sleigh parts, you can go back to Mount Crumpet, go to a certain room, and you can activate the final scene, which allows you to go on a fight against Santa Claus. You'll first have to take all the presents that he drops down. He's like parachuting them down to the Who's homes. You have to go capture all 10 of them, and then you have to shoot snowballs at him and send him hurtling down into Whoville, and that will complete the game, which is really, really funny. I think the final boss is pretty finicky. Getting all the presents is pretty hard because it doesn't control nearly as tight or as quickly as you need. The response time is really bad on this, and so it's really hard to make sure that you get every single present, but it is very doable. I did it my first try, but I knew what to expect this time going in. And once you finish the game, you unlock a little motorbike sequence, which is thoroughly bizarre, where you do like a 3-lap race against these different people. It's very, very funny. It's just a nice little bonus thing. You also have bonus areas. If you break a certain amount of presents, you can unlock little mini games. They're nothing to write home about, but they can be a little fun distraction if you want to go try those. All in all, this game has a lot going for it. The platforming is fairly solid for a tie-in movie game with all this extra stuff sprinkled in. The platforming is very, very good across the board. I had very few times where it feels like you're getting cheated out of a jump or out of one of your devices because you're doing something wrong. The gadgets are really fun to use. Most of the time, the mechanics work exactly how they're supposed to. It doesn't look great, and I don't think it's supposed to look great. I think it's just supposed to control well. And again, I said this about a game I reviewed recently. The more fun a game is, I can forgive the graphical fidelity. I can forgive a lot of other things because I'm just enjoying it. It doesn't have to look super pretty for me to have a really good time. And again, this is maybe a little bit of bias here because I just love the Grinch and the Grinch property as it is. But I just think this game is really fun and deserves a good, fair shake. And I think more people should play this one. It's a crazy Christmas classic here. And I think that if you have a chance, go out and try it. I would love a remaster of this game. I think that'd be a really out of left field thing, but I think it'd be fantastic. We got a new Grinch Adventures game last year or a year before. It's awful. I think it's really bad. I think something like this, getting a port into modern consoles, would actually be really cool. A full remake, I think, is completely out of the works, but I feel like a remaster or port could actually do some wonders here. I would love to see what that would look like. But this game is really, really fun. And again, if you haven't tried it out, go check it out. It's a really fun one. I think it's a lost gem, a hidden gem, especially during Christmas time or the holidays, where it's fun to play games like this. It's nothing that you're going to remember forever, but it's something that I play year after year because it's a nice, compact experience that I can really get behind. So I'm actually going to reevaluate this one and give it a white gold rank, which is in between my silver and gold ranking, because it's just a lot of fun. It's not perfect, like I said before, plenty of visual issues. It's not the most consistent game in terms of gameplay mechanics, but it's pretty good overall. Not the tightest story. It's not the longest experience. It's not that complex, but it's a ton of fun. So I really love this game. I just wanted to talk about it again. Let me know in the comment section down below what you think. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.